is a video series where we interview a variety of professionals from different career paths to find out more about their backgrounds, how they got into their field, and to get advice if you're interested in becoming a member of that profession as well. Today, we're speaking with Liz Mallinson, who is a production manager and producer for Live Event with an extensive background in theater and film production. As the supervising production manager at the Time Center, she oversees production on over 50 events per year, whilst managing a technical staff of 35 people. Hello, Liz. Thank you for joining us.
Hi.
Can you tell us a little bit about what your day-to-day looks like, how long you've been in this field, and how you got started?
Yeah. Day to day is different all the time. Events kind of operate seasonally. So summertime is a lot more meetings and site visits with clients. And then in the fall and the spring, event mode. So live events, guests in the building. Yeah.
What
And
type?
then
Sorry, what type of events do you do?
all kinds. We do live performance. We also do a lot of corporate events. So investor meetings, expos for people to display new products, that kind of thing. Yeah.
How did you get started in this field? How did you know this is what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I got started off actually in theater. So in college, I discovered theater tech and design, and I really loved working with my hands. And I got into carpentry and being a stagehand. And then I kind of made my way through theater and found that I could still do theater, but do it with events. And you can actually see my virtual background is the space that I work in right now. So I'm really lucky I work in a venue that is also a theater. So I'm still in a theatrical setting, but in a slightly more corporate environment than theater is.
That is really funny. That's really cool that you found something that you liked and you were able to translate it so that it keeps going. I'm going to edit that part out. Sorry. Can you walk us through a typical workday?
Yeah, so on an event day, I come into work sometimes as early as like 4:30, 5 in the morning and get the venue open for vendors to come in. We have caterers and branding and all kinds of people coming in. And then depending on the event, we'll open our doors to guests once we're all set inside of the building. And then we will usually rehearse a stage program on stage. Sometimes we don't get at rehearsal time. We kind of plug everything in and go. But what's really cool is I work in a venue where so much is built in. So uh, yeah, we have a lot kind of set up for ourselves when we come into work, which is awesome. And then we do an event. Usually, it really depends. It changes day to day. And then we break down and we go home, and then we come back the next day and do a different event.
And on non-event days, what does that day look like?
A lot of phone calls, meeting with clients, answering a lot of questions about the venue that I work in. Again, we have a lot of in-house technology, very specific to our theater. And so sometimes people have questions about how it works or the logistics for their upcoming event, and fielding questions from a lot of clients.
What is there an average number of events that you do per week or per month?
It changes. So when we're really busy, every day of the week, I would say we could have anywhere from 6 to potentially even 8 events a week. Sometimes we'll have 2 events in one day, which is pretty crazy. And yeah, can you repeat the question? So what's
What is the average number of events in a week, in a month?
Yeah. So I guess when we're really busy, I would say 5 events a week. And when we're less busy, maybe 2 to 3 events a week. But our whole venue, we do 200 events about a year. And then I manage a team of production managers and technicians. And so I can't possibly do 200 events in a year. So we have other production managers that we hand events off to. Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit more about managing your team? What are you helping them do? How are you guys working collaboratively? Something along those
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of people that I work with. The people that I supervise directly, we've got production managers, production associates, and then we have technicians. And we have lead technicians in different areas of theater technology. So we've got an audio supervisor, a lighting and electric supervisor, and a video supervisor. And then for the production managers, they have a general understanding of how all theater technology works. And they all come from different backgrounds and have different pools of knowledge to share, I would say. And then we also have other technicians that we hire to fill in roles as needed. But on any given event, we always have a production manager, a production associate that's assisting the production manager, and then at least a lead in every department.
What are your hours like during the week? Is it a typical 9 to 5? Do your hours change based on the days that you have events?
My hours vary week to week. During a slow season, it's much more of a 9 to 5. Get to work, answer emails, take some site visits, take some meetings, wrap up for the day, head home. But when we're in event mode, it's that administrative work, and then also working much longer days, being on site for way longer than I would be during a down season.
Because of the crazy hours, are there any limitations on your life outside of work? Do you have to sort of adjust your personal life around it?
Yeah, I feel like I don't make too many sacrifices in my personal life for work, which is something that's really important to me. I think it's really important to have hobbies and activities and friendships outside of work. I personally like to do ceramics. That's my hobby right now. But I do have to spend, I have to prioritize being at work sometimes, whether that's a 14-hour day or if it's a lucky 6 to 8 hour day.
Are there any special licenses or certifications required for this? Does it depend on the type of technology you're using or the type of event you're hosting?
There's no direct certifications that you need to have my kind of job, but there are ones that help. So when you work in live events or theater, it's really helpful to get a FireGuard certification. So you take that, you get certified through the FDNY or wherever you are. And basically it certifies that you have an understanding of egress and fire safety within venues. And when you are a place of assembly, you're required to have those people on site if you have a live audience in person. So you might actually at a library have someone in a similar role. You might just not realize because you are probably a place of assembly that are really helpful, I think. I have a background in carpentry. So having a background in like tactile skills and understanding technologies and keeping yourself up to date with developments in your industry is really important. And then another thing for me, I'm huge on safety. When you're a production manager, understanding OSHA regulations is really important to ensure a safe workplace for everybody.
Did you develop your carpentry skills? Was that from working on plays in the past, or did you take any outside courses?
That was strictly college. I learned everything, not everything. I started learning about carpentry in college. I just walked into the theater department one day and I said, how do I get involved in building scenery and set design? And I spoke to the technical director at my college and he let me work in the scene shop and learn along the way. It was really cool. And then I loved it so much that I declared it as a major. And my other major in college was also digital media production. So live event world is a big combination of like theater production and on also digital media because there's so many presentations and things that people come in. So I have to understand file format, etc.
Are there any other skills that you would say you should maybe not be proficient in, but at least know of, like the files, attention to detail, communication skills? Like what other skills would you say are super important for the skills?
That's a really good question. People skills. And I think those are the hardest one to learn, honestly. You can try to absorb as much knowledge as possible and but learning different types of personalities that you might interact with and being able to delegate is really important, especially in a managerial role, because I know I personally have a tendency to want to do everything myself. And it's really important to understand that you cannot drive a ship alone. There's a whole crew.
Totally get that. It is. I'm the same way. Sometimes I try to do everything, but you have to remember you have a team, and it's good to work in a team, and you're better together.
Absolutely.
Do you ever have to travel for your job?
I don't, because I'm venue based. I don't travel for work. But that's not to say that production managers can't travel for work. Lots of companies come through production companies that manage events for clients. They'll work all over the country, but also internationally too. You can be an international production manager. It's kind of limitless.
It's really cool. How has technology changed your job? Like in the library setting, we always talk about how computers and the internet has really changed the way we find books and shelve books and organize books. Has that impacted the production world as well? Is there something
Yeah.
similar?
There's constantly new technologies coming out. I will say audio technology hasn't changed that much in the last like 50 plus years. We found ways to make it more wireless, right? We have wireless microphones now instead of hardwired. But video technology changes really fast. And lighting technology has developed, I would say, probably in the last 50 years in a cool way. We've got moving lights now. So what's cool about our venue is we actually have what we call a rep plot, which means that we don't really refocus our lights for different clients, but we can design different looks based on what a client's needs are, because we have a really well built out grid. So we have got moving lights built into our system, and we can kind of design new things every time if someone comes in, which is really cool. But we're also set up for like a standard panel discussion, light them in the middle of the stage kind of situation. But with video technology, that's the one that changes the most. And we actually just upgraded ourselves to laser projectors. So it's a whole new world. And we're an HD house is what I like to say, and most consumer technology is done in HD. But 4K technology is developing. Even we've surpassed that too. When you go to the movies, you're seeing like ultra HD beyond 4K.
Thinking back to high school and college a little bit, what classes or skills from classes do you think you utilize the most? Do you use math, reading, business classes, foreign language?
Let's see.
Yeah.
I think something I wish that I had developed more was my foreign language education. I didn't take a language in college. I took, I think, one semester of Spanish to complete my requirements, and I kind of wish I had stuck with that a little bit more. Being bilingual, that can send you so far. You can do so much. And then in terms of classes that I took that I still use today, definitely in my media and culture classes, like media and society is a super entry level class to take when you're studying comms. And I still think about the things that I learned in that class today. That's, you get such a good foundation in a class like that, understanding media companies, how they, you just get a better understanding of the world at large. Because when you're in high school and college, you don't have a grasp on reality and like the real workings of the business world. And so media and society is a great class to take to kind of give yourself like almost a little reality check. And then I love math. I think in another life, I maybe would have become a math teacher. So I say go math. You'll always use math. They tell you you're going to use this when you grow up, and people say, no, that's not true. It's true. You need math, whether it's crunching numbers or like figuring out the dimensions of something, not something that we do in our space, but rigging is another field that gets pretty involved in events world, especially in more empty spaces that don't already have like a theater structure. And that's all math. Even geometry.
I wanted to go back to something you mentioned before. You mentioned rigging is sort of like an adjacent tangential field for live events and production. Are there any other fields that go alongside this that you might be interested that teens could consider
Consider working in as well?
Yeah, there's a couple. So besides event production, there's also front of house. So front of house is everything that happens before you step into that theater, and then also people that work as ushers. If you ever go to a Broadway show or an off-Broadway show, anything that happens before you get into that theater, that's all considered front of house. There's client services and things like that involved, and organizational skills and people skills that really come in handy there. And then also something we've seen, this is kind of goes back to like how the industry has changed, is live streaming. Live stream production is super popular. Most of the events we do now are hybrid. We've also expanded like our ability in-house to do live streamed productions, which isn't something we really offered pre-pandemic. But yeah, we're seeing more and more hybrid, so that you can reach a broader audience. And so that's a really cool field to get into, and understand. Yeah.
Because with the hybrid side, it's figuring out the internet connection at a very basic level, like figuring out the internet connection, how you're going to get it to people watching it.
Yeah, I won't bore you with all of the like jargon, but basically, in order to live stream something, we do this thing called encoding. And it's basically how we get our cameras at the end of the day to talk to a platform somewhere so that someone can watch on the internet, basically.
So in terms of gaining experience, is this the kind of field where it's more, an internship will help you learn how to do everything, or is it more of, you sit through a class where you learn how to do everything?
I think that in almost any field, education's super important, but like your real world experience is also equally as important. I personally think that I wouldn't be where I am today without all of my in-person experiences. Everything I've done has led me to this point. I did an apprenticeship at the Santa Fe Opera right after college as a carpenter, and I'm actually pretty sure that I can link the people that I met there to every job I've had since then.
Cool.
Yeah, invaluable experience. Internships are awesome. They should be paid. Internships and apprentices, it's still work at the end of the day.
What is your favorite part of your job? Which feels like a very hard question for anyone.
Okay, this is a two-part answer. My favorite part of my job is the variety. I love that we don't really rinse and repeat and do the same thing twice. We have repeat clients, we have repeat events. But the fun thing about live events is you really never know what's going to happen. We do rehearsals and you plan things, but you really don't know what you're going to get until it's actually happening in real time. And then I guess the second part to that is the people. Theater people are fun. And all my coworkers are theater people. We have a good time. Obviously, we're serious, we work. But I work with some really, really lovely people.
My next question is, anyone who's looking to get into live events, where is the best place to find job listings? Is there like a central website to look at? Is it more, you look up the company and see what they have open?
Yeah. The internet is an awesome tool for job hunting, and looking for internships and things like that. I personally will recruit on LinkedIn sometimes. The only thing I would say to be wary of on the internet is, what's great about LinkedIn is that, job listings can be connected to the organization that is posting it. So you can kind of verify if something is actually good, or legit. And there's also playbill.com. So that's for theater jobs. And they have a whole section where people can actually do free and paid listings, I think, there. And it's required to put what the rate is for a job on Playbill, which is super important. And there's a lot of variety there's events work there, but there's also theater work there. So those are the two places I would say to look first. Yeah. Yeah, I think the exception to the rule is part-time casual work, which there's definitely a lot of that that floats around. That's kind of what I think the events industry does thrive on, is part-time casual work. It is important, I think, to understand too that there's a lot of freelancing that goes on And that's a job in and of itself. I used to be freelance, and that is, you spend a lot of time maintaining your own calendar. It's doable and it gives you a lot of flexibility. So I wouldn't discourage people from pursuing a freelance lifestyle, but just to know that when you're doing quote unquote gig work, you might not have work all the time.
Talk a little bit more about the freelancing. Is it that, you're working on one event, you're working on multiple events for a few hours each week? How does that work?
Yeah, it really depends on how you manage your schedule. There's a lot more, I think, networking that goes on too when you're freelance. You usually end up working for companies, multiple companies, or for clients. And it depends on what your role is, what you're marketing yourself as. So as a carpenter, I worked freelance. So I worked at lots of different venues, or for production companies throughout the city, in all the boroughs. And then when I was a stagehand, I was a part-time stagehand at Blue Man Group. I worked backstage. I don't know if you're familiar. Your reaction makes me think you're familiar.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and that was really fun. That was a cool job too. But then I also did show running at other venues too, other off-Broadway theaters. Yeah, and it's a bit of a crazy schedule, but it also gave me a lot of flexibility in my personal life. So I think it's a great way to spend your early 20s.
Lots of experience, a nice
Yeah.
variety of things. That sounds pretty fun. I mean, it definitely has its pros and cons.
Yes.
Okay, so my last question, what advice would you give to any high schoolers that are interested in working with events and event production?
Go to events. If it's something that's free, especially, why not? Go check it out. There's lots of things going on in public spaces. And take a look around when you're at these events and try to figure out who's working here. There's a lot that goes into a live event. There's a lot of unseen faces and hands that touch projects. Yeah, take a look around and see, what do the lights look like? What does the staging look like? Is there someone wearing a headset walking around talking into it, that kind of thing? There's all kinds of jobs.
So, thank you. Well, that was my last question. If you have any last bits of advice you want to share, anything you want to mention that hasn't come up yet?
I think my last bits of advice are, you never know who you're gonna meet. Always err on the side of professional, and be open to new opportunities.
All great advice. Thank you. Thank you so much for speaking with us today, and thank you to everyone who's watching this. If anyone has any additional questions, please feel free to email the library at teens@levittownpl.org, and we will get in touch with Liz to ask for any follow-up questions. Please visit our YouTube page for more videos in the Meet the Professionals series.